there's only so much a man can take. The lies, the corruption, the feeling that no one is listening. And in a small mountain town called Granby, Colorado, one man decided he had enough. What he built wasn't a protest. It wasn't about money. It was about making them feel what he had felt. Ignored, trapped, cornered.
Well, God blessed me in advance for the task that I am about to undertake.
To some, he was a monster. To others, a martyr. This is the story of the man they wouldn't listen to until it was too late. Who was Marvin Heemeyer? Was he a domestic terrorist or just a man pushed too far by a corrupt system? And is violence ever justified when every peaceful path is blocked? Let's try and find out.
Hello, I'm Mike Droberg, Marine Corps veteran and filmmaker, and we will try to answer these questions on today's episode of Forgotten History.
Marvin Heemeyer didn't start out as a villain. He wasn't violent, he didn't make threats. He didn't carry signs or scream at town halls. He just wanted to run his business. A muffler shop, tucked behind a concrete plant in the quiet corner of Granby, Colorado. Population, just over 2,000. A place where everyone knew everyone, and if you weren't born there, you were always an outsider. And Marvin, he was definitely an outsider. He'd served 6 years in the U.S. Air Force, stationed at Lowry Air Force Base. Trained in missile maintenance, which was precise, mechanical work. The kind of job that required discipline, focus, and a trust in the chain of command. But after leaving the military, Marvin learned that not every system runs by honor. Now a welder from South Dakota. Outspoken, proud, self-made. The kind of guy who fixes snowmobiles, helped organize races, and didn't like being told what to do. He bought the property at auction in 1992 for $42,000. It didn't have a sewer hookup, but that was fine. He rigged up a makeshift septic tank using an old concrete mixer drum, and for a while that worked. But then, the town changed. Granby was growing, and in 2001, the local government approved a zoning change to allow a nearby company, Mountain Park Concrete, to expand and build a large batch plant right next to Marvin's shop. Marvin opposed it. He said it would trap his property, limit his access, and ruin his business. But the town approved it anyway. Soon after, the town ordered Marvin to connect to the municipal sewer line, but it wasn't that simple. Because of the property's slope and the distance from the main line, he would have needed to install a 100-foot pipeline and a lift station at his own expense. Estimated cost, $70,000, more than he had paid for the land by itself. The town suggested a cheaper option, installing a proper septic system, but Marvin rejected that too. To him, being forced to pay for any of it was government extortion. So he did what Marvin always did. He took matters into his own hands, and he started illegally pumping waste from his shop into a nearby irrigation ditch. When the town found out, they fined him $2,500 for health violations. He paid, but included a note that simply read, "Cowards." But it didn't end there. The concrete company even offered him an easement, permission to connect to their sewer line, if he would just stop opposing their expansion. He refused, and that's when the dust started. After the plant went operational, Marvin said the concrete dust coated everything on his property. His tools, his customers' vehicles, and even the air inside his garage. He claimed it was hurting his business, driving away clients. And no matter how many complaints he filed, no one cared. But when he left too many cars on his lot, the town fined him. When his septic setup failed code, the town fined him. But when the concrete dust blanketed his shop every single day, nothing. To Marvin, This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a conspiracy. The town council, the mayor, the Dochev family, he believed they were all working together to push him out, and he said as much on tape. He tried to play by the rules, hired lawyers, filed complaints, attended meetings, but in his mind, the system was never going to listen. By 2003, Marvin Heemeyer had stopped trying to be heard. He no longer showed up at town meetings, no more appeals, no more letters. The man who once tried every legal channel now spent his nights alone in the garage. And in that garage, he built something no one saw coming. A Komatsu D355A bulldozer. Ordinary at first glance, but what Marvin created was anything but. He welded half-inch steel plates around the cab. Then he added poured concrete between the layers, 2-foot thick armor in places. He installed surveillance cameras protected by bulletproof glass. He ran those feeds to monitors inside the cab, built custom ventilation, air tanks, a firing port, even a cooling system for the engine. He sealed the cockpit from the inside. This wasn't a machine built for intimidation. It was designed for war. Neighbors had no idea what he was doing. Some thought he was working late. Others assumed it was just junk storage. In truth, Marvin had spent over a year turning that bulldozer into a tank, and he documented everything in audio tapes he recorded himself.
Once they get that in their mind, that's the only thing that's reasonable. Well, I've developed that philosophy to a point, maybe even to a higher point, because I am going to be unreasonable.
He believed God had chosen him, that his cause was righteous, and that what he was building wasn't revenge, it was justice. In his mind, he wasn't planning an attack. He was preparing an act of divine correction. And on June 4th, 2004, Marvin Heemeyer entered the machine he had spent over a year building. He climbed inside the cockpit, secured himself in, bolted the armor shell down from the inside, sealing himself in for good. And then he started the engine. At 3:47 p.m., the bulldozer burst through the side of his muffler shop. Steel, brick, smoke. The town had no warning. His first target? The concrete plant that had started it all. He leveled it in minutes. Then he moved through town with surgical rage. City Hall, the police department, the local newspaper office, homes owned by town officials, a hardware store, a former judge's property. One by one, each location tied to someone who had wronged him. People called 911 in panic. Police swarmed. They fired pistols, rifles, even armor-piercing rounds, but none of it worked. The dozer was too heavily reinforced. At one point, a SWAT officer climbed onto the moving bulldozer. He tried dropping flashbangs into the exhaust and camera ports, hoping to blind or disorient Marvin. But there were no openings. Everything was sealed tight. Helicopters circled. Roadblocks were set. Still, the dozer moved forward. Slow, deliberate, unstoppable. Heemeyer had no escape plan, no demands, no interest in negotiations. For over 2 hours, he left a trail of destruction. 13 buildings, no civilians killed, no police officers shot. It wasn't until he reached the Gamble's hardware store that the plan, whatever it truly was, started to falter. The floor gave out beneath the dozer, collapsing into a basement. Marvin tried to free the machine. He rocked it, revved it, but the dozer wouldn't budge, and just like that, it was over. Inside the steel box, Marvin Heemeyer took out a handgun and ended it all, himself. When the dust settled, Granby looked like a war zone. 13 buildings destroyed, millions in damage, and one man dead. It took 12 hours and a blowtorch to cut Marvin Heemeyer's body out from the machine. Inside the cockpit, investigators found water bottles, a Bible, a .50 caliber rifle mounted to fire through a port in the armor, a .223 caliber rifle, and a handgun. the one he used to end his life. The Dozer's interior was sealed tight, fully self-contained. He hadn't just built a weapon, he built a tomb. And in 2005, the government dismantled the bulldozer, cut it into pieces, sold the scrap. No museum, no public display. The goal was clear, to prevent it from becoming a symbol. To make sure no one could point to it and say, this is what happens when you ignore a man long enough. But the monument didn't need to be metal. It was a memory. Online, Marvin Heemeyer became something else entirely. A folk hero, a warning shot, a symbol of rebellion against bureaucracy, corruption, and silence. They called it Killdozer Day. Every June 4th, the internet remembers. He's been immortalized in memes, graffiti, music, and conspiracy threads. Some wear his face on shirts. Others tattoo the Dozer on their arms. The message, you can only push a man so far. But not everyone calls him a hero. Critics say he was selfish, delusional, that he chose violence over community, that he wrecked lives and businesses that had nothing to do with his feud. And maybe they're right, but Marvin Heemeyer left behind no apologies, no regrets, just his own words carved into cassette tapes.
I am going to sacrifice my life, my future, to show you, my miserable future that you gave me, to show you that what you did was wrong.
He didn't ask to be forgiven. He just asked to be remembered. So, was Marvin Heemeyer a madman, a martyr, or something else entirely? Let us know what you think in the comments below.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or show ideas, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again.